Today is Tuesday, September 3rd, and we're joined by one of the voices of the New York Yankees. Between the Bases starts right now. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to an episode of Between the Bases podcast. My name is Noah, alongside me is Mo, and today we are joined by one of the many voices this year of the New York Yankees, Emmanuel Berbari. Mr. Berbari, how are you doing today? And thank you for coming on.
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me, guys. I love that you have this podcast, and I'm happy to be aboard.
So, as Yankee fans and future broadcasters, we enjoy listening to you on the radio home from Yankee games and on the postgame show. We have to say you're living our dream. Did you grow up as a big Yankee fan?
Huge Yankee fan. So I appreciate you saying that, because when I was growing up, it was like you guys, where I was watching Yankee games day in and day out, living and dying with every pitch. I remember the 2009 season was one of my first real introductions to Yankee baseball. I'd watched it periodically in 07, 08, but 09 I watched every single game, and I was scoring games down the stretch, and I was so dialed in on that season. So it holds a special place in my heart. And I grew up on Long Island, so the combination of being from New York, from Long Island, being a Yankee fan, of course, I'd love to be broadcasting for any team right now, but it's even more special, and it's perfect that it's the Yankees, because it's my childhood team.
When did you realize you wanted to be a broadcaster?
Yeah, good question. I was a freshman in high school, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. I had no idea that broadcasting would be even on the radar. And one of my friends who was really interested in technology and different projects, he went to the Journalism Club Advisor, and they started working on a live stream video project, which hadn't been done at our high school before, where they would stream different events and games and board meetings. And once they started off the ground, broadcasting a couple high school basketball games December of my freshman year, I was just asked to help out, like as a friend. And I went there and called a game, got behind the mic. And once people have that aha moment sometimes, that was my aha moment, where I called that basketball game and realized this is really cool. Like, as I've watched these sports games, I have been watching as much for the announcers as the players and what happens in the game. So I had a keen eye on that and ear for that moving forward. And that's when I really decided it was what I wanted to do. I didn't fully materialize it or take the necessary steps to get where I wanted to start going until maybe later on in my sophomore year and deeper into high school, into college. But that freshman year, I probably narrowed it down to broadcasting could be something that's, I could do this I could watch games and get paid to do it. Like, that's, I didn't even know that was real. And once I did, it was something that really appealed to me.
Is it tough for you when you're watching games to not be biased and everything, and not react as a fan, and have to react as as a broadcaster?
Yeah, as a Yankee fan, naturally you get more disappointed when they lose or more excited when they win. So that part isn't hard for me, because I'm a fan at heart. So if the Yankees do something exciting, I don't have to be told to be the home team broadcaster, or I don't have somebody coming to me if I'm asking for feedback after a game and saying, "Oh, wow, you sound a little too national." I don't think that's ever an issue, just because I have that fan within me. But when they, let's say, have a rough performance or they lose, over time, I haven't really thought of it as a fandom thing. Where when I was in college and we got the chance, it was this awesome chance to cover games professionally in the New York area at Fordham. They had credentials for 20, 25 years. The Yankees, the Mets, the Giants, the Jets, Knicks, Nets, all the local teams. And I got the chance to cover the Yankees, the full season beat reporter. And doing that as a college student really taught me how to conduct myself in a professional environment very quickly. And you have to adapt on the fly, or else you're not really going to last in that environment. So I put the fandom aside quickly. It's not that it's not within me anymore. It still is, and it always will be. But I learned, okay, they win or they lose is a job to do. And I'm judged, and I judge myself on, did we have a great show tonight? Do we have a great broadcast? And if that happens, then it's a win. I want the Yankees to win. It's better when we're reporting good news, and I don't want them to lose 9-1 and get 2 hit. But if we're doing our jobs properly, we should do a good broadcast if it's 9-1 or if they're winning 12-2.
Yeah, for sure. Noak and I look up to broadcasters like yourself, John Sterling, Michael Kay. Which broadcasters did you look up to as a kid?
Yeah, those same guys. More, of course, and I include Mike Breen and some prominent basketball broadcasters in that mix for me as well. But I grew up listening to John Sterling, and I think a lot of when you start broadcasting, you naturally start to copy others, and that's not a bad thing because you're going to develop your own style over time. But I know a lot of my cadences in baseball and the rhythms and the way I describe certain things, there was a lot of Sterling in it. I started listening back, and I'm like, oh, why am I saying it that way? And I started asking myself those critical questions. And it's because you listen to somebody, and that's the way you know how to do it because that's the broadcast you're accustomed to. Same with Michael Kay. A lot of the way the vernacular, the way I describe certain plays or the words I use would initially come from Michael Kay and watching Yankee games. So those are the two most influential from a Yankee perspective. And growing up watching baseball, I had a lot of a mishmash of John Sterling and Michael Kay. And over time, you try to get your own stamp and your own style. But I think the roots of my baseball broadcasts are from those two.
Obviously, John Sterling, he's not himself without Susan Wallman. You have the privilege to work with Susan Wallman. What's it like working with a goat like her?
Yeah, goat is right. She's one of a kind. And every day you show up to the ballpark and you have the chance to work with her. That's as special as any part of the job too, right? You're showing up and there you are. You're in one seat in the booth, and that's John Sterling's seat in my mind. And then you have Susan Wallman's seat right next to you. There's a Radio Hall of Famer and a trailblazer who has had this incredible, remarkable career. And as much as I work with her, and as much as I want to have the best rapport and camaraderie with her on the air, I lean on her a lot too because the depth of experience is so vast, and there's so much insight she can offer me as somebody who's been around for so long and has heard so much broadcast. And we talk about influential voices when we're growing up. Think about the amount of people that she's heard and evaluated, and how her philosophies on broadcasting have changed over time. So just as a person and a partner and a mentor, above all else, she's been amazing.
What kinds of challenges did you face, stepping into the shoes of John Sterling and taking over for him?
Yeah, I think over time it's just growing into yourself in the role and making adaptations and adjustments and figuring out different ways you want to do the job, and making sure that you don't lose sight of the fact that, hey, like, you're here because it's you. It's not like you're trying to be anybody else. Like when you're hired for a job in broadcasting, whether it be on a part-time, full-time basis or wherever it may be, any level, you're getting hired because that person wants you and your stamp on things. So the more you try to live up to something or be somebody else, it's a slippery slope. So you even if that means trying out new things and figuring out what works and what doesn't for yourself, that's all good because you're being hired because it's you. It's not somebody else. And one day it could be somebody else, but then that it would be on that person to put their own stamp. So that I think has been the biggest thing, is just constantly growing and evolving and letting my personality come out a little bit more and not focusing on, okay, sure, I'm going to focus on it. When I look around Yankee Stadium, I never lose sight of the fact that, wow, this is Yankee baseball. Like, this is a big stage, and I'm so fortunate to be here, and it's a privilege to be here. And this is John Sterling's seat, and I'm sitting next to Susan Wallman, and we're in the Yankee Stadium broadcast booth, or we're in any road broadcast booth, and it's the Yankees and let's say the Orioles or the Red Sox or the Rays. I never lose sight of that. But I think the most important thing is when the game starts, it's a baseball game, and don't veer off the fact that the game's out there, and that's something that Susan's great at instilling in us. The game's out there, and it's a baseball game, and not to overthink the process. So thankfully, that was something that came to me pretty early, and I just reminded myself, look, once the game begins, it's the game. But I never have half innings where we go to break and I don't look around and appreciate exactly where I'm at.
Who's the most important? Who's the most important person you've met while broadcasting?
Most important is a great question. Let's say Susan, because I'm working with her every single day when I do the games, and it's Susan Walbin after all. So I think that's the most important person I've met, and the most important person in my journey this year. Now, there's everyone involved in the broadcast as well. We have producers behind the scenes. We have our producer engineer Matt Shortis and Rick Roush, who's our production assistant, and we have everyone back at the station that helps produce the games in studio. So those people are equally as important because we're working on a broadcast team. But if you're just talking important and influential in the scope of broadcasting, and somebody I'm working directly with, like I see a ton of people I've idolized and looked up to for a long time when we go to opposing ballparks, but I'm not working with them every single day. Susan, I am when at least on the games that I work. So that's been super important to me, at least.
Do you have a favorite booth to visit?
Good question. I believe it or not, and people give this ballpark a really hard time, Tropicana Field.
Not Williamsport?
Williamsport was awesome in its own way, and it reminded me of the minor leagues too, which I cherish every bit of the minor leagues and the time I spent in the minors and the Cape Cod League as well. It reminded me of that intimate setup where you're right on top of the game. But in terms of a major league, not high above the field, but let's say second level, you're at that like suite level vantage point from a broadcast booth. Tropicana Field has an amazing booth. Their view is pretty much better than most stadiums, and people give the ballpark a hard time, and I think there are some good reasons for that. But from a working standpoint, I love working at Tropicana Field. Now, Baltimore was really cool, and I admire Camden Yards, so that view was awesome. Fenway Park, maybe not the best angle to call a game. You're a little higher up, and you're a little bit off right. So balls and strikes and maybe some reads off the bat and fly balls, you got to be extra careful, at least to start the series. But when I looked out at Fenway Park and you're calling a game with all that history and prestige, it's never lost on you when you do a Yankees Red Sox game there. So I'll put Fenway Park right up there, even though the booth angle maybe isn't the most conducive. But you make that work. You always get used to whichever environment you're in. And this bias, but Yankee Stadium is an incredible booth view.
Aaron Judge right now, he has 51 home runs. He's right now he's not on pace to break his record, but if he does break his record, do you have a call prepared for that?
I do not. I think whenever you have something prepared, it's more likely to come across as a little bit forced, and it's more likely to sound prepared. I'm not saying it will, but the odds increase. Just think mathematically. The odds increase of it sounding forced if you have something rehearsed in your mind, because then you have to deliver the words exactly as you thought of them and not organically and with that genuine awe and amazement of what just happened. So I'm not saying I've never thought of something in the past or thought of a few words or a key phrase. I actually think that's a good way and a better way to think of it. Like when Judge hit his 300th, the only phrase that was in my mind was fastest ever, because that had to be part of the call. A lot of people have hit 300 home runs, and I'm not saying it's not an amazing feat. You have Major League Baseball only around for in the scope of world history. Major League Baseball has been around for a minute period of time, and still there's this vast history of Major League Baseball. Only 162 players have hit 300 home runs, so it's an incredible feat, incredible accomplishment. But 162 is more people than 10 or 11. Like you're in this elusive, never been done before type of mode. But Aaron Judge, what was unique to him is he was the fastest ever to get to 300 home runs. So I thought that had to be part of the call. I had that phrase or two words in my mind. I was going to be part of the call no matter what, but I didn't know how the rest of the call would go. And then so have it. You have a line drive to left on a 3-0 pitch, and that makes the call unique. He had a green light. It was a 3-0 pitch, and he turned on it, and he basically said enough, and I'm hitting my 300th home run right now. So that's why I think it's important to not prepare things, because things can happen in very distinct ways. And I'm sure it'll come into my mind if I'm calling a game, if the timing lines up and Judge is at 62 again and has a chance for 63, I'm sure it'll creep into my mind, wow, this could be a big, iconic, historic call. But I don't think I'll ever do word for word. I'll always think of phrases or important nuggets as opposed to overall call.
How many home runs do you think he's going to end up with at the end of the year?
I'm pulling for 63, but I think he's going to wind up with 59 or 60. Like, I don't think he's going to get there quite yet. I wouldn't put it past him. I never put a limit on what Judge can do. Aaron Boone says that a lot, and it's one of the truest things that he says every day. And never put a limit on this guy because he's really, we got to appreciate the historic talent we're watching. But I think with the amount teams are just going to be careful with him, we're already seeing the stark increase in intentional walks. And we've seen him play at this ridiculous level where we take it for granted when he hits 13, 14 home runs in a month. That's not normal. That's not supposed to be a normal thing that people do. So if Judge, let's say, has 9 or 10 home runs in the month of September, that's a really good month. That's an amazing month. And he would still fall short. He would still get to 60 or 61 and not get to 62 or 63. So I see him falling just short, but it'll still be a better season than 2022 because he'll have a couple of fewer home runs, but he'll have maybe 30 points on his batting average, 50 points on his on-base percentage. He'll have a higher WAR if you're in the advanced numbers. He'll have a much better all-around season. I think he'll gladly take that if the Yankees can go on a deep playoff run. So I could see him getting to 60 easily, but I'm not sure if I see 63 this year.
So let's talk about Judge's teammate. Obviously, everyone's thinking about where Soto's going to land in the offseason. Where do you think he's going to land?
Yankees. I don't see why not, just with the way he's endeared himself to the fan base and the way he loves it here. I think he truly does love it here. Now, free agency is unpredictable. It was unpredictable with Aaron Judge, even though he was a homegrown Yankee, and we couldn't imagine him being anywhere else. There was that brief few-hour period where we thought he was a San Francisco Giant. So it's very unpredictable, but I think when it's all said and done, there's a marriage that's worked and a marriage that should continue. And Juan Soto wants it to continue. It's just a matter of if he's not going to take a major discount to go anywhere. But the Yankees are the Yankees. So I think they're going to make their representative offer when it's all said and done, and he'll be here for the next decade plus.
A lot of Yankee fans are fed up with Alex Verdugo's performance this year. You know, a lot of us expected Jason Dominguez to be called up on September 1st. Obviously, he didn't get called up. Do you think we'll see Jason Dominguez at all this year?
I do. I think these things have ways of working themselves out. Now, another way it could work itself out, if Verdugo gets hot and the team just starts rolling, nobody's going to be talking about Jason Dominguez. And that's not a bad thing for him. I think he has an amazing future. And we saw a snapshot of that late last year. And thankfully now he's healthy after the Tommy John, the oblique, and the setback. So that's most important, is that those injuries are behind Jason Dominguez, and he's found his footing easily again at AAA, where he barely played last year. We got to remember that he played AA. Then when the Yankees were sort of out of it come September, they wanted to go with the youth movement. They called him up after a cup of coffee at AAA. So he's really playing more at that level. He's getting more reps, getting more experience. So maybe Verdugo gets hot, and then if the Yankees are winning and they're running away with the division, we won't have as much focus on that. But I do think whether he continues to rake down there and the Yankees make a later decision, it doesn't have to be September 1st, as Aaron Boone has said. It could be any time within the month, especially if we see it within the next week or so. Or we talk about this all the time. Remember how much we would talk about earlier in the season. Who's leaving the rotation when Garrett Cole comes back? And then an injury to Clark Schmidt takes care of that. Injury to Cody Poteet takes care of that. Now we're looking at Luis Heel and Clark Schmidt coming back this weekend. Who knows how the rotation is going to shake out and who could go down or who could come back or anywhere in between. I think the same thing could happen with the outfield. If you have a minor injury or something that opens up opportunity for Dominguez that isn't the direct, okay, Alex Verdugo has to lose playing time type of situation. Of course, nobody wants an injury, but I always find that we wonder about these things and they end up working themselves out. So if it's meant to be this year for Dominguez, I think it'll happen. If it's not meant to be, probably won't, and the Yankees will be better off for it.
Hey, listen, I don't think if they call Dominguez up, then they'd probably have to send Oswaldo down next week because John Birdie's coming back. So I think Yankee fans forget that aspect too. But I think I was listening to Talking Yanks and the John Boy guys. I think it was Sunday night, and they said that the Yankees have a go time. I don't know if they know this from Boone or something, but they said that once they get Heel back, once they get Schmidt back, and once they're going to hit the go button, and that's when they're going to call up Dominguez because they can play him every day. And he's not going to lose his rookie eligibility.
I like that theory. They kind of go, all right, we're not messing around anymore. This is our go time. We are at full strength, and we are going to go with our full strength group no matter what. One thing I would say, I'm glad you mentioned Oswaldo and Birdie. First of all, I don't think Oswaldo is going anywhere on this team. I think he's been very valuable, and he can serve so many different roles. John Birdie, when he comes back, that's a very valuable, maybe if somebody goes down, or a bench bat come postseason time, a pinch runner come postseason time. But those are guys in Birdie and Oswaldo who can play 2-3 times a week if you need him to. I don't think the Yankees want Dominguez coming up and he's playing 2-3 times a week. If Dominguez comes up, he's playing at least 4 or 5 times a week, if not every day. So they're not looking for a month of him watching. They're looking for a month of him playing. If that go time includes him playing every day, then great if that's what they want. But if that's not going to be there, if there's not a lane, as they would call it, for him to play 5-6 days a week, I just don't think we're going to see him because that role won't exist until next year.
Yeah, do you think the Yankees are going to hold on to LeMahieu for the rest of the year?
Yes, I do. Now, the question is what the role is and how much he actually plays, and does he start hitting enough to warrant meaningful time down the stretch? That's all an open question at this point. But I don't see, some people have called for, okay, you got to get rid of him, or there's 2 years left on the deal. And I think LeMahieu was in a spot in spring training before he fouled the ball off his foot again. Had some bad luck this year injury-wise again. So I think the Yankees would like to at least, even if they had to, I'm not saying this will happen, but even if they had to shut him down for the rest of the year, I think they would give him another shot in spring training to be healthy, to have his swing in the right place, and then run it back. And then if it didn't work out next year, it doesn't work out next year. But I don't think they're ready to cut bait with somebody like DJ LeMahieu, who was in a really good spot in spring training, and his clock was completely thrown off and was put totally behind the 8 ball by that initial injury.
Thank you for coming on, Mr. Berbari. Again, it's a pleasure that you took your time out of your day. So thank you again.
Thanks for having me, guys. I enjoyed it.
And everyone, remember to like and subscribe, and we'll see you for the next episode. Thank you, Mr. Berbari.